What's up guys, Mickle here, and earlier today Gary Gensler was on Bloomberg talking about his loss to Ripple in the SEC case. Well, in this video, I want to break down this clip and really get into the weeds of whether or not it looks like Gary Gensler and the SEC are going to appeal Judge Torres' decision in the Ripple SEC case. This is extremely important. It's one of the most hotly contested topics in cryptocurrency right now. I want to give you my opinions on it, but towards the end of the video, I actually transition into talking about Palau. Palau just built a CBDC on the public XRP ledger. I want to show you something extremely interesting that we are seeing from the transactions on that CBDC, because guys, we might have some hints from where the wallets originated to some other CBDCs Ripple has been working on. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video to see that. This is absolutely fascinating. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. If you enjoy these videos, make sure to take a quick second to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out so much. Also, if you ever need a good place to buy some XRP or the Flare token, make sure to check out my favorite exchange Uphold down in the description of this video. With that said though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So I want to start out this video and quickly show you a clip of Gary Gensler on Bloomberg earlier today, where he is asked directly about his loss to Ripple. Now, I always found this very entertaining because for the longest time, Gary Gensler was able to dodge these questions by saying, oh, I can't talk about this, it's being litigated and that litigation is ongoing, so I can't answer any questions about this case. But now that the case is essentially over, Gary Gensler is kind of being forced to answer questions about what exactly happened and how the SEC lost so badly. I want to play you this clip because they actually directly talking about an appeal here, and I want to break down whether or not it seems like to me it's a probable scenario, so listen up to this.
To a different topic which has gotten a lot of attention lately, crypto. Specifically, a ruling that was made in the Ripple case that XRP is only a security when sold to institutional investors, not so with retail investors. I know you've previously said you were disappointed by that ruling. The SEC has also said that it intends to seek further review. So does that mean you are going to appeal it? Can you elaborate on your thoughts around that ruling?
Kaylee, great question, but the commission, I'm one of 5 commissioners. Mm-hmm. The commission has not acted on that, and if the staff makes a recommendation, we'll have a discussion of it, and we'll take it up then, but I don't really have anything more for you for that.
So the important thing to understand there is in order for, and I have to change this because I cannot look at Gary Gensler in that pose right there. So what did we learn from that clip? Well, the one thing that I think we learned for sure is that the SEC and Gary Gensler aren't in any massive rush to appeal the case. Now, the reason why this is so important is actually because how the appeal process works. The SEC had 2 different ways they could appeal this case. The first way, and this would be the immediate way that we should have seen anytime from a couple days ago till the next week, is something called an interlocutory appeal. When this happens, the SEC has to make it clear to Judge Torres that her ruling actually created an emergency, and therefore they should be granted a special access to actually do an emergency appeal. Now, this is the appeal many people were worried about, but it looks like based on what we're seeing here is it doesn't look like the SEC is going to go down that route. When you have Gary Gensler going on these interviews saying, oh, we're thinking about it, we need the commissioners to vote on it, that kind of gets rid of the idea that there could be any kind of emergency in place. If there was some kind of emergency, obviously the tone would be very different, and it would be obvious that all 5 commissioners probably have to vote in the same manner, because if it's an emergency, well, then political views really don't play a part in anything. They just need to gather and protect the retail public. What we're seeing here is that's kind of off the table based on how he's even approaching these questions. So if the interlocutory appeal is off the table, then we probably won't see an appeal from the SEC in the next year or so. And the reason for that is because the other avenue they have for an appeal actually has to happen after the case is completely over. We know that despite the fact that XRP won big and so did Ripple in this case, technically the case is not over yet. So the SEC would have to wait for this case to go all the way through trial before they could have their second chance to actually appeal this case. Now, the important thing to understand with that is at that point, we might have a completely different SEC makeup. Gary Gensler might not even be there. We could have SEC commissioners who don't even want to touch this case. They could say, wow, this was a massive embarrassment for the SEC. We don't want to reopen up this can of worms. So the real point I'm trying to make here is if we really do get past this time period and we're running out of time fast for the interlocutory appeal, then we're probably not going to see an appeal in this case. Now, what's so funny about this is we've had countless different lawyers who honestly predicted this entire case wrong from the start, now running around Twitter, running around in public interviews saying, oh, the SEC will 100% appeal this case. Based on everything I am seeing right now, it looks like the SEC is going to keep talking about appealing this case, but never actually do it. The other thing I want to point out here is there's still a very good chance that the ongoing charges in this case that could be going to trial end up settling. And if that happens, there's even less of a likely scenario that this case would be appealed, and I actually think a settlement for the outstanding charges is actually very likely. So the main point I want to get across here is we're really moving past the stage where the SEC would have been able to file this emergency appeal, and this was really the most likely appeal they were going to file. Now that this is moving out of the way, it's really starting to look like the SEC is just accepting the decision in the Ripple case, and their strategy going forward is simply going to be, hey, Ripple is a very unique company, XRP is a very unique digital asset. You cannot say your cryptocurrency or cryptocurrency company are similar. It's all facts and circumstances. Either way, though, I thought this was extremely interesting. I wanted to move on, though, and actually talk about the Palau CBDC. Now, this is very exciting because this is the first public CBDC we have seen on the XRP ledger. Technically, Palau doesn't have a central bank, so it's not technically a CBDC. It's a national stablecoin, but that's essentially the same thing as a CBDC if Palau did have a central bank. So for short, we'll just call it a CBDC for this video. So the most important thing we need to understand about this project is that the United States was obviously heavily involved. There is no way Palau went out of their way to build this CBDC without the blessing of the United States. Something else pretty interesting that we're actually getting from this, though, is the ability to actually look at the transactions. Now, one very interesting thing about this CBDC being built on the public XRP ledger is that everything's actually visible. Now, one thing that I know is going to get a ton of backlash over the next couple of weeks is the amount of XRP actually in Palau's wallet for issuing their CBDC. It's only 50 XRP. Now, this is pretty shocking because a lot of people are going to ask, how are you running an entire CBDC on 50 XRP? And to be completely honest with you, I'm not really sure. If you were to ask me a couple years ago, would you be able to run a CBDC on 50 XRP? I would have said, no way, that's never going to work. But what we're seeing is that's actually happening in Palau. So does that mean you don't need any XRP, or you only need a small amount of XRP in the future and we're never going to have demand? No, I don't think that's the case at all. First, I will say one thing. It could be possible that the reason Palau has so little XRP is because there's a plan for significant price appreciation that would make that XRP worth a lot more. But it's still only 50 XRP, so even if XRP went to $1,000, that's still only $50,000, which is probably a lot smaller than many of us expected for what you would need to run a CBDC. So what do I think is the more likely scenario? I think it's a lot more likely that the amount of XRP used to actually operate a CBDC isn't that high. But what is going to require a lot of XRP is the transfer from one CBDC to another. So what we're probably seeing is that you only need a small amount of XRP to run a CBDC because that XRP is only being used to pay transaction fees. The stable coin on the XRP ledger technically isn't actually XRP, and therefore it has a completely different liquidity profile than the XRP itself. So the XRP is just being used to pay off the transaction fees. But the other thing that's very important to understand here is that CBDC is still going to have to interoperate with a bunch of other different things, and that's where XRP comes into play. Regardless of what you think about only a small amount of XRP being needed for the actual CBDC, it is an absolute fact that in order for that CBDC to bridge to any other unit of value, it is going to require some kind of bridge, and that bridge is going to be designed to be XRP. So it doesn't look like we're going to have any immediate price appreciation because of the CBDC, but as more of these CBDCs are being built out, I think we're going to see XRP as the bridge between them, and that's really what's going to drive the demand for the asset. And I want to point out one last thing, and I don't want to actually go into my DMs to show you this, but I actually got some very interesting messages, and you can do this yourself, of people going into some of these wallets that were used to create the Palau CBDC, opening them up and seeing what other wallets these providers have created. Now, what we know is these wallets were from Ripple employees or different accounts at Ripple, because that's who set up the CBDC for Palau. And what you can see is a lot of these people have actually set up other projects in a very, very similar way, labeled things like US Bank, London Bank, Brazilian Bank, Mexico Bank. And what this probably means is there's a lot more of these tests going on in the background. Palau is just the first one to go live. And this plays perfectly into the thesis I was just talking about, where you might not need a lot of XRP to run each specific CBDC, but if you want to go to the Palau dollar, to the Mexican dollar, or you want to go to the Mexican peso, I should have said, to the US dollar, you are going to need a bridge in the middle, and that's where XRP demand gets hit. If you guys want to check this out for yourself, all you have to do is go to XRP scan, find the Palau CBDC wallet. If you go on Twitter, there's links all over for it, and I'm pretty sure I retweeted some, but it's this account right here, XRPG and Ripple Brett. These are the two wallets that had the originating accounts for the Palau CBDC, but interesting enough, they also had some other potential projects that look like they might have also been test CBDCs for things like the United States, things like the Bank of London, things like the Bank of Mexico, and it's just really interesting to actually see the inner workings of the setup of some of these projects happening behind the scenes. Now, I don't know whether or not these were just these employees messing around and just making it for fun, or if it was some kind of official test, but it's still highly interesting, and I definitely don't think it's any kind of coincidence that these other accounts are set up as the same exact way as the Palau CBDC that just got rolled out. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed this update. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does mean so much. And for now, Mickle out.